Things Podcast. Hey, Phantomaniacs, welcome to the newest episode of the Needless Things Podcast, where we talk about toys, movies, music, and all manner of pop culture dorkery. I am your host, Dave, and I hope that the new dehumidifier that is now running in a section of our house where we have never before in the last 15 years had, 14 years, had a dehumidifier running, but where Mrs. Troublemaker now insists that if this loud, chugging dehumidifier is not running at all times, it smells funny. 14 years, not a problem. All of a sudden now we have to run this thing like constantly. And look, I could have turned it off, but it's down this like weird corridor in the Phantom Zone that I would have to move some boxes and open the door. Like, I think that she put it there knowing that I am often going to be too tired or lazy to go in there and turn it off to do whatever it is I need to do. And since I've got my headset, and since I usually have a fan running that you can't even hear when I'm recording, I hope that this throbbing machine will not detract from your enjoyment of this introduction, where I've got a few things I want to cover. I have the first two items under news, even though they're not really news. So I'm not gonna put them in the official news section. Oh, and by the way, I am in day 2. I have a new work schedule. This is also not news. It is news, but it's really just me news. I have a new work schedule. I just finished the second 12-hour day of 5 12-hour days in a row. That is my new norm. My new work schedule is 5 days on, 2 days off, 2 days on, 5 days off, which is great and not so great at the same time, because the 5 12-hour shifts in a row is absolute hell, especially with some of the stuff that's going on right now at work. But then the 5 days off is obviously super. Everybody would love to have 5 days off every 2 weeks, obviously. The advantage of this, and the reason that I'm thrilled about it, is that it lets me stay on day shifts and hopefully never, ever, ever work another night shift ever again for the rest of my life, because I hate night shifts. So that's good news. But after day 2, I'm a little tired. I would like nothing more right now than to say, welcome to Turtle Talk with Chris and Dave. Here you go. And just throw it over to the conversation that I had with our pal Chris DePetrillo from Figures Toy Company, whose last name I always feel like I'm mispronouncing, and I apologize if I am, but I don't think I am. We go back and look at the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles toy line. We do not get nearly as in-depth as we have with some other toy lines here on the show. I tried to make it a little bit more focused because I wanted to leave it open for future Ninja Turtle episodes. But we had a great conversation. We had a lot of fun talking about turtles. We learned some things. And in the end, I think we were both better people. So you should enjoy this, listen to it, and at the end, you'll be a better person as well. But before we get to Turtle Talk with Chris and Dave, I want to say you need to go and subscribe, please, to the Needless Things YouTube channel. I'm doing stuff over there. I've so far been putting up 2, look, they're toy reviews, right? They're what I've been doing for the past 11 years, whether in written form or whatever. They're toy reviews. But YouTube and social media really love the word unboxing. So even though it goes against the very fiber grain of my being to use a buzzword like that, I really do want to try and get a little bit of traction with this because I enjoy doing these the way that I do them. So I am using the term needless unboxing, much as it grates on my nerves. So, since I am doing this for you, the people, free of charge, by the way, I think that you should go to the Needless Things YouTube channel. You should subscribe, and you should share. Just pick one out. Pick one out that you like. And just share it once. Just once. I'm not asking you to go on every single social media outlet you have. I like this review of the G.I. Joe sunglasses. I like this review of Baron Benz and the Aquaticons from Mezco's 112 Collective. I like this Rhino Alien review. Oh, look at these Holy Grail unboxings that Dave did. This is interesting. Some cool vintage toys, which, by the way, new Holy Grail unboxing coming I don't want to say next week, because this one is going to be the biggest effort that I've put forth in these videos. So it's very important. Like, you don't even understand. This is like the Holy Grail, I think. I don't know. There's probably other stuff that would blow. I don't know. No, this is probably the most special, certainly the most expensive toy purchase I've ever made. Well, no, that's not true. That's not true. It's still not quite as much as the sail barge, but it's up there. But anyway, it's very special. I want to make it very special, so I want to take my time and make sure I do it just right. Not that I don't do that with the other videos, but they're a little easier to put together. This one's going to require a few more elements than I usually have in those. But anyway, that's coming. Please, Needless Things YouTube channel. Go subscribe. Go tell your friends. Also, join the Needless Things podcast Facebook group, where I've been popping in from time to time and doing some live unboxing or whatever else. Just with the different schedule that I've had lately, I've been a little more motivated to just out of the blue do something like that. And I think it's a lot of fun. And sometimes people watch, and sometimes they don't, but it's there. And I don't think I'm going to transfer any of that stuff. I put a couple up on YouTube. I don't think it translates very well, so I'm probably going to keep that stuff in the Facebook group. So please go join the Needless Things Podcast Facebook group. Answer the 3 questions. If you don't answer the 3 questions, I'm not going to let you in. It's the end of it. They're very simple. They're a little whimsical, but also serious at the same time. But if you don't answer them, you don't get in the group, because it means you don't have a sense of humor or any kind of self-awareness whatsoever. And we can't have that in the Needless Things Podcast Facebook group. All right. Now that all that's out of the way, it is time for some news. Okay, the first news is there's a Prince book that I didn't even know about. And honestly, I used to be more on top of books. I'm just not. I have no excuse. I'm just not. But I was in Target on the way home today because I had to get some stuff for work. And, of course, I went back to the collectibles section because I have to check and see what they've got. And, which, by the way, and I hate to throw this in the news, this is conversational, but what are you going to do? I bought the new NECA Annabelle figure that looks incredible. I was going to do an unboxing, but I gave it to Mrs. Troublemaker, and she just opened it right up. And because I'd gotten home from work and I was tired, I wasn't thinking. And so I was like, okay, well, there you go. It's open. We're fine. But it's a great looking figure, but not as great looking as this beautiful book called The Beautiful Ones, by Prince. And I'm not even sure what it is. It's heavy as heck. I can't believe, it's not thick really, but it's super heavy. It's one of the densest books I've ever picked up. It appears to be modeled somewhat after the Beastie Boys book. There are a lot of handwritten notes in here. There's some text. There's a lot of pictures of Prince when he was very young. It seems like it's biographical, but it's a very classy, well put together, neat book. And is this storyboards from Purple Rain? Wouldn't that be cool if that's what this is? No, I don't. This might be storyboards from a video. What is this? I don't know. A lot of this stuff isn't labeled. A lot of it's very just sort of thrown. I don't want to say thrown in here because it's obviously all very planned, but it's a very interesting volume. So next time you're in a bookstore, oh, well, look, there's the picture of Prince in the G-string, just hanging out, having a cup of, it looks like milk in a soda cup. Oh, man, I love that guy. I miss him. So anyway, yeah, go buy Prince, The Beautiful Ones. It looks incredible, and it's a must-have for any fan of music, art, and Prince, obviously. Okay, so that's out there. That's good news. More news, Doctor Who news, which I don't often delve into anymore. I've just I still love classic Who. I still love a lot of, what has happened in the modern world, but I've just kind of gotten away from it a little bit. But great Doctor Who news, David Tennant and Tom Baker are doing an audio story together, where they team up to take on, who else? The Daleks. It's called Out of Time. I do not know when it's coming out, but I'm pretty excited about that. I haven't bought an audio story in quite some time. Well, oh gosh, what was the last one I got? It was really good. It was one to do with the Cybermen, and it was great. I can't remember exactly what it was, but anyway, keep an eye out for that. It's great news. I cannot wait to hear Tennant and Baker interacting in that way. And then finally, Hasbro Pulse and Big Bad Toy Store and Entertainment Earth, all the toy stores you know and love, have the pre-orders up for all the new Star Wars Black Series figures, which includes re-releases of all of the Rebels figures thus far, a new release of Zeb, who we've been waiting years for. He looks incredible. He's a deluxe figure. He's bigger. He's got his staff rifle thing. And then also tons of other Black Series figures. The only other ones I pre-ordered were the Mandalorian in his Beskar armor and Admiral Akbar, because I love Admiral Akbar, and I certainly wouldn't say I have one of every, but I have a lot of Admiral Akbar figures because I just love him. So yeah, check out wherever toys are sold. Oh, and this was big news, they're also re-releasing the Ahsoka figure as part of that sort of Rebels wave, I guess it is. And that is an incredible figure, and a lot of people missed out on it. So go ahead and pre-order that one. I was surprised. The first one to sell out was the Mandalorian. Everything else was still in stock as of this recording, so just keep an eye out for that stuff. And I believe that it's light. We all know what's going on now. So that's all the news. Okay, so I love Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I've talked about Ninja Turtles a lot. We did the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie for this month's Needless Commentary. If you haven't listened to it yet, you should go listen to it. It's great. We had fun. I got into Turtles in '88 when the toy line launched, and I would have to really sit down and do some hard thinking to remember where the cartoon, the toy line, and the comics fell for me. I'm pretty sure the toy line was first, but I love the franchise, and this toy line. If you listened to last week's episode, I went through my personal toy timeline, and it's a landmark line for me. Like, if I could open the toy museum that people have been telling me for years that I have here in the Phantom Zone, there would absolutely be wings for Mego, Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Ninja Turtles, Toy Biz X-Men, and then Power of the Force 2. I mean, I would have to include that because that's what really kicked my serious collecting back into gear. But anyway, today we're talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it's great, and you're going to have fun, and you're going to love it.
Oh no, they're getting away!
It's the foot soldier riding Killer Bee, Shredder's gigantic Mega Mutant. They're buzzing off with a stolen top-secret isotope. How will the Turtles ever stop them?
You're asking me?
With Needle Nose, the Turtles' own Mega Mutant, the psychotic Killer Bee attacks, but Needle Nose outmaneuvers him. The foot fingers fumble it away, and the isotope is safe.
I told them not to bug me.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
From Playmates.
Phantomaniacs, May has been quite a month here on the Needless Things podcast. We've done a lot of awesome stuff that I've been really excited about. Now, we already had one Ninja Turtles episode where we talked about the 1990 movie, and I hope everybody tuned into YouTube to check out the special that was run by Judith Hoag, where the whole cast, as well as Brian Henson and Kevin Clash, got together to talk about the movie and do a little bit of a script read. It was great fun. If you didn't check it out, go check it out now. But now it's time to get to the roots of most people's turtle fandom, and that's to take a look back at the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles toy line. And here to do that with me tonight is Mr. Chris DePetrillo. Welcome back to the show.
Hello, glad to be glad to be back. As I trip over my words, it's been a long time since we've podcasted. Hear that?
It has.
Tonight, that's it, to talk turtles.
Yeah, well, it has been a minute, and actually, normally this time of year, we would be doing our flashback episode, but
That's right.
We're going to have to throw up a little poll in the Needless Things Podcast Facebook group this time, because I really don't know if we should do 1990, which would be the normal next progression from what we've been doing, or if we should do 1980.
Oh, go back a little further, which in 1980, I'm dating myself, but that's the year I was born, so that could prove to be very interesting for me.
Well, and I'm only 4 in 1980, and there's stuff, I'm not leaning towards 1980 because that would be a different kind of thing, because so far, all the years we've done have been sort of our personal recollections, and 1990 would be that. Whereas 80, which I'd like to cover 80, but I think maybe it would have to be a different thing. I don't think we can do it as part of the series that we've been doing.
Right, because our nostalgia fuels those podcasts, and if we're 4, or in my case, not even born until the end of the year,
Right.
then we don't really have that to go on. It's going to be more informative than nostalgia.
Right. So I think maybe we'll figure out a different project to build around 1980, because there's fun to be had there, but it would be a different kind of thing. But today we're going to be talking about 1988 and the launch of one of the greatest toy lines of all time. And I say that stating it as fact, but where do you land on that? Where does the Ninja Turtles line fall in the history of toys for you?
I think it's one of the most collectible as far as just the variety it gave us. Some people will knock some of the variations, and I might even kind of roll my eyes at some of the things that they gave us, but it was so developed, it was so expansive, it was just, I give so much credit to the people who are completists collecting that line, because it is just something to be immersed in for years and years on end. And I'm a Ninja Turtles fan. We can go into the fandom as we get further along here in the conversation, but it is just a testament to Playmates that they took that property and did so much with it and made so many fun-looking figures, the colors that pop, the designs, just the weirdness of some of them, the absurdity of some of them. I just think it's one of the greatest toy lines out there for anybody to get interested in and start collecting.
Well, that's what drew me in the first place, is that weirdness and that very specific design, because I gave, on the last week's episode, I sort of gave my toy timeline of going from Mego to Star Wars to G.I. Joe, and then Ninja Turtles followed up G.I. Joe for me. And, it's funny, I enjoyed He-Man when I was a kid, but I was never a big collector. But to me, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are almost the spiritual successor to the Masters of the Universe line.
Very much so, because you have those oddball characters and the weird backstories and biographies and people that you would see and you're like, well, where did this character come from? Where did this idea come from? Just but I think that Playmates was probably a little bit more thoughtful in the process, because if you've seen the toys that made us, you realize that the guys at Mattel were just kind of like, hey, we could create this guy and we'll name him this, and it was just like a big in-joke from Happy Hour at the bar. So I think that I'm sorry?
Oh, well, and beyond that even, the people behind the Masters line will come right out and say, we had 4 bodies, out of which we made like 80 characters. Whereas with Ninja Turtles, you see, most of them, well, everything really is a new sculpt. Like even the 4 turtles, in the years since the original line, we've seen a lot of shared sculpts between Turtles figures, and depending on what line it is. But even the original 4 turtles were different in the way that they were posed, their facial expressions, everything. There were no shared parts there except maybe the torso.
Mm-hmm.
So there was more, I think, creative passion invested into the Ninja Turtles line.
Absolutely, and it was almost that, the weirder the character got, the more the figure stood out.
Oh, absolutely, and the more, once they hit a certain point in the line, and as we go back and forth talking about our favorite figures from the line, we'll get into this a bit, I'm sure. But as it went on, and they realized they could go further and further with some of the craziness, you really got to see them take, because the original figures, the first waves that came out were relatively straightforward, but as the line went on, you'd see crazy things like little characters sculpted onto the big characters. Like if you look at Muckman, everything going on in his sculpt is just craziness, and that is... Yep. That's a toy designer's dream, I would think.
And that's why Muckman is one of the characters on my list. Spoiler alert.
He almost... Well, this was tough because when I was talking beforehand and I said, here's kind of the format I'd like to have, and I realized how difficult it was going to be to choose favorite figures from this line, because you could probably put 20 in front of me that I could call my favorite.
Oh, absolutely.
So where I want to start off here is how we discovered this toy line. For me, like I said, I went from G.I. Joe to Ninja Turtles, and it was I was not aware of the comic book at first. The toys came out before the cartoon came out, or before I was aware of the cartoon, really, I guess. I don't know the exact timeline. I just know that the toys were where I got invested. And that, to me, the cartoon was almost a departure from what I was expecting from having gotten into the toy line. But seeing those in the aisle, obviously 1988, ninjas are still really cool. Anything ooze-based in the 80s, come on, that's a no-brainer. And then these cool humanoid animal hybrid characters, which again, coming sort of from the same vein of creativity as Masters of the Universe, there's just a lot of built-in appeal from different things into one toy line, and I was hooked immediately. What's your sort of first memory of these toys?
So I had vague recollections of seeing the syndication run, the short-lived 5-parter. And in the 80s especially, I was very into two things. You already mentioned the He-Man relationship that you felt, so I was already into the wacky characters from Masters of the Universe, and I was already reading comics. I didn't know of the Ninja Turtle comic like you until a little bit later on, but I was also into martial arts. I've taken Taekwondo since I was 4 years old, so I was into the ninja craze and Bruce Lee and Black Belt magazine and anything I could get my hands on. So here was this cartoon about these mutant animal ninjas fighting these weird bad guys, and it was just like, if you took everything I liked at the time and threw it in a blender and poured it out, it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And it hooked me right from the get-go. And I remember that in 1988 for my birthday is only a week before Christmas, but I was fortunate enough where I had certain relatives that would kind of double dip and spoil me a little extra, as opposed to go the other way and just get me like one big thing. And my grandmother knew that I was, going gaga for these Ninja Turtles figures. And I got the original series of figures along with the VHS of the original cartoon. It was like the 45-minute or hour-long VHS, kind of compressed the origin story. And that was like my big birthday gift besides video games that year. And those turtles got cracked open immediately. Like, my birthday party wasn't even over and I was already having like a fight with all the Ninja Turtles figures.
Now, do you remember, and I didn't even recall this until I sat down, and for the listeners, if you want to go to figurerealm.com, I always recommend it as a great resource, but also a potentially dangerous one, because you're going to find stuff that you want to have. But I didn't remember that the first releases of the Ninja Turtles had hollow, soft, like vinyl or PVC or whatever heads, and then later releases were just hard plastic, and this was the Turtles and Bebop and Rocksteady and Splinter were all this way. And I had the soft-headed turtles because I grabbed these things the second I saw them. Do you remember which kind of heads yours had?
I believe they were the soft heads, and I can actually double check when I drop my son off at my parents this weekend because I still have quite a few of my turtles down in the basement.
Oh, I'm so
I'll
jealous.
Have to back double check. Yeah, I still have some of those original figures down in a bucket in the basement. Definitely, well worn out from play, and some of them have already been passed on to him. Like my son has Rocksteady and the Foot Soldier mixed in with some of his He-Man guys that I've passed on to him. So I will have to double check and see which ones I have because I honestly couldn't say for sure right now.
I don't. For me, it's purely just nostalgia. Like if I picked up a Rocksteady and he had a hard head, I would be like, "What is this? This is weird." Because I just remember that feeling of that hollow head. And it's funny. I'm sitting here looking at Figure Realm right now. Didn't realize Rocksteady billed at 5'7" tall. Bebop.
Really?
Bebop 5'10" tall.
And these are supposed to be the monster heels of the Ninja Turtle franchise.
Right. And, I mean, granted, compared to the, let's see. Leonardo's 5'1", which is around 5 feet is what I've always thought of the Turtles as being. But then it says Donatello, 4 feet.
So, wow. So, all right. So, I always figure them to be universally the same size.
That's
like, I didn't picture the Turtles to be of different heights and weights.
Well, not back then, because now in newer iterations of the Turtles, they have made them like Raphael be a little bit bigger, Donatello might be a little lankier, like the last Ninja Turtles cartoon that is my personal favorite version of the Turtles. They really gave them different shapes, but yeah, back then I would have thought they were all 5 feet tall, all the same weight, but they're not. Raphael is 5'1", Michelangelo 5 feet, Leonardo 5'1", and Donatello 4 feet tall. So Donatello's supposed to be very small,
and that's from the back of the cards.
Yeah.
Statistics they have cards.
Yeah, it's all laid down. It's got the all the accessories and the bios and everything are on the website. But yeah, that's interesting.
So, I did not know that. I'll have to see. Now I'm going to read Figure Realm even more tonight.
Right. Well, that's Figure Realm is, I think it's kind of like Wikipedia where all the information is user generated. So some toy lines like this one has literally every figure, every vehicle, every piece of information entered in, but then other more obscure stuff, it might have the name of the figure and like an old bad picture, and that's it. So it really depends on how invested the contributor was in the line as to how much information is on Figure Realm. But yeah, Ninja Turtles is loaded up. I
would say that this is one of the lines where we have everything we need.
Yeah, man. Oh, it's great. It's great, and it's terrible. There weren't just figures in this line. Every great toy line, in my mind, has to have vehicles and accessories for the figures to interact with. And Ninja Turtles was definitely full of that stuff too. So actually what I want to do before we really talk about our favorite figures, I want to save that for the main event. Right now, our prelim, we're going to talk about some of our favorite vehicles and accessories and other types of things that they managed to come up with to put in a box and sell alongside these figures for this toy line. And I'm going to kick this one off because I got to be sure I get my guy in. And I'll let you go first with the figures. But
okay.
Not just one of my favorite toys from this line, but one of my favorite overall toys. If you remember, there were 2 figures called Mega Mutants. One of them was a bee, and he worked with the Foot Clan. And the other one was a giant mosquito called Needlenose.
Yep, I remember Needlenose.
And he hung out with the Ninja Turtles. He was the good guy Mega Mutant. And that Needlenose, I mean, really, he's a vehicle, but he's also a figure because he has a character, and the way that he interacts with the Turtles, he's not just something that they ride around. He's a character unto himself. And his design is incredible because all he could have easily been shrunk down and put on a blister card alongside the rest of the figures. But instead he is, as they say, a mega mutant. And he's got these cool translucent wings. He's got like a crazy flat top, and then he's got all the wild detail. He's got slime coming out of his mouth. His tongue's hanging out. And a turtle fits on this cool contraption on his back that has like a gun on it and a windshield, and it's all of the like mechanics of this toy line are all this great cobbled together stuff, like this aesthetic that to me will always be Ninja Turtles, but also maybe has a little like Mad Max in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved this guy. He's got all 6 of his arms are articulated. It's just a great looking figure that went so far above and beyond what they really had to do with something like this. Did you have either of the Mega Mutants, or do you remember these guys?
I do remember them. I didn't have either of them, but I do remember him because, like you said, he's not a vehicle, he's a character, and they could have easily gone the Baxter Stockman route and just shrink him down to that size and had the similar aesthetic doing it that way. But now I'm looking at him right now, and if I remember correctly, he was like a military guy that mutated or whatever.
He's got
so that's why like he was supposed to be like an Air Force guy or like a jet or something like that. Like that was kind of like the connotation. I'm actually pulling it up right now so I can see the biography.
He's got
when you cross a mosquito with the jet fighter. Okay, yep. So
and he's got the military insignia on his shoulders, and he's got like a jet engine on the back. I mean, really, just I would love to talk to that. What a great conversation it would be to have with anybody who worked on this line.
Oh God, for sure. Just the create, like we were talking in the beginning, just the sheer creativity of that. I mean, like you said, like with Masters of the Universe, they had such limited stuff to work with, and it was like, okay, like how far out there, / how absurd can we get with what we've got? Whereas with the Ninja Turtles, they were not afraid to just keep going and going. Like they didn't take an existing mold or anything like that and kind of warp it into something new. They made these giant figures like that when they could have very easily made a $4.99, $5.99 action figure out of this guy. And, it's kind of a testament to the toy line too, that, every good toy line has a headquarters, vehicles, accessories, stuff like that. But now you've kind of got kids, or, in our case, adults now, wanting to collect something that is that hybrid. Like it has like more appeal. It's not just like, oh, here's another van or another truck with different logos or guns slapped on it. Like here's something that truly stands out as like a one-of-a-kind playset or accessory.
And even as I'm sure we'll end up talking about, even the ones that were straight vehicles had so much personality that they all became so, like you said, it's not just another Jeep or whatever. And don't get me wrong, I love my G.I. Joe Jeeps. But this was a whole different level of, wow, this is like, you look at this and you see Donatello built this thing. It's a different thing. So that is my first pick, is Needle Nose. I love him as a character, as a mode of transportation. What is one of your favorite vehicles or accessories or whatever?
So one of mine is one of the more simplistic designs, but the nostalgia and how I repurposed it for many other toy lines over the years. My nod goes to the Knucklehead Trap from the Foot Clan.
Yes.
Because not only would I use that with my Ninja Turtles, but I would use that when I broke out my He-Man guys again as some sort of evil trap. I used it with my Toxic Crusaders figures, which I intermingled with my Ninja Turtles once those had come out, because they were very similar in design and body type and just even backstory.
I did the same thing. That they just got incorporated into my Turtles.
Yep, everyone just got kind of mixed in at that point. Even once the Toy Biz lines like X-Men, the Marvel superheroes started hitting, I would use Knucklehead as a trap, even though the figures were slightly smaller. I would just come up with some type of absurd way to get Spider-Man or Hulk inside it and needing to break out. So just on the longevity of play alone, I've got to give Knucklehead a spot in my list.
Well, and I love it. It has a simple design, but it's creepy because it's spider-like and it's weird, and it's got those two little hands on the front while the rest of it's the boxing gloves, which lots of boxing gloves in this line. I don't know that the Rocky line had as many boxing gloves as the Ninja Turtles line. And then the cool feature where the foot soldier or whoever's piloting this thing, to me it was always a foot soldier because it almost looks like it's a different version of a foot soldier. Like it's built from the same parts. But whoever's strapped into it is in the little winch part that hangs above, and you just walk around, and like it has, again, beyond just being a vehicle, it has functionality as a fun toy for a kid to play with.
Yeah, it was like having like a puppet on a string almost. Like just kind of like, walking around with this contraption, and it wasn't just something that had to stay in place. Like you could, like you said, carry it around, lift it up. Like there was just so much use. Like, it kind of enhanced the collector's creativity as well as the creators.
Well, and you had to get creative with how you drop down. For the listeners, this thing, it's kind of spider shaped. It's got 4 arms, and there's isn't there like a pressure switch up underneath? So when it lands on a figure,
yeah, it had like that little mechanism,
right? The legs close together, and it picks the figure up. If you do it right, there was always a little bit of. It was like a game. It was like a game of skill to manage to get it to pick them up right. Because obviously that didn't.
It was like the claw game, like the vending machine.
Yes. Yeah, it's exactly like that. Yeah, great pick. I love that thing. I mean, that was essential. That would be, if I was going to be crazy enough to go back and try and recollect this line or parts of this line, this would be an essential piece for me.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you.
All right. Well, my next one, and this is tough because I don't know that we're going to get through. We got a lot of ground to cover here. So I am going to throw out one that I almost didn't put on my list. So it's probably the one I should leave off if I'm going to leave anything off, but I got to get it out there because it's so insane. The Turtle Blimp. I mean, it's so ridiculous. It's so impractical. And yet, it's one of the most iconic toy vehicles ever because of how insane it is. It is actually an inflatable blimp, and it underneath has that carriage deal that holds a turtle, that has the bombs that you pull the trigger and the bombs drop off. It had the cool plastic vanes that were really hard to get onto the blimp, but then once you got them on, they stayed on pretty well. But this thing was just massive, and they got away with making one of the biggest vehicles that had been made at the time because it was inflatable. And technically all it is that little carriage piece, but once it's inflated, it's this huge, impressive thing.
And if you think about the age of some of the kids playing with Ninja Turtles at the time, the blimp would literally be bigger than some of them.
Oh, for sure. Because they did, my son was collecting all of the stuff from that last Ninja Turtles cartoon, and they did a new version of the Turtle Blimp. It was different, but it was the same size, and like he couldn't even really play with it because it was so big to him at the time. So we ended up just hanging it up in his room. But just what a great conversation piece, what a great design, and one of the cool features of it, the little pegs that the bombs hung from, when you press the trigger, the pegs retracted into the body, which would drop the bombs. But the cool thing was the pegs were the same size as the turtles' open hands. So you could actually hang figures from those pegs as well, and it doubles as a troop transport.
Yep, do a little bombs away ninja action.
Absolutely, yeah. That just a sort of simple. It's simplicity, but it's perfectly executed.
It's a great playset. I myself did not have it. I remember seeing it in the store. It didn't really appeal to me. I'm not sure if I was just kind of more into the run and gun type stuff of like the wagons and the vehicles and the Jeeps and stuff like that. But looking at it, through collector's eyes and over the years, just imagine having, like your son's got the new one. Imagine having that original one as a display piece.
Oh,
just
yeah.
it is just, especially being that massive. I mean, that would take up a good chunk of your home office or your man cave, whatever you want to call it. But it is just, that is one nice looking piece of plastic.
And I will say that I think at the time I got it because it was there to be gotten. I don't think I necessarily, it wasn't one of the things I went out of my way to get. It wasn't something that was like on my list of I have to have this. And something to remind the listeners of is this line was hitting when I was 12. So this was all very much on the down low for me. Like, I had a couple of friends who were buying some turtles here and there, but we did not talk about it. Like, it was like people would come over, like the guys would come over, we'd sort of talk about turtles and stuff, like, hey, but outside of the safety of our homes, we did not discuss our Ninja Turtle collections at all.
We didn't talk about this in...
What was that?
We didn't talk about this in school.
And then I for at least through probably being 15, I guess, I was still actively buying all these toys. So that's the timeline we're dealing with here as we move through these different Ninja Turtles figures and accessories and whatever else. What is next on your list?
So mine, I'm going to go ahead and list this one now just because we've already mentioned Masters of the Universe a couple of times. But the sister toy to the Masters of the Universe slime pit was Shredder's Flushomatic.
Absolutely.
And so because I had two different slime pits, one at my house, one at my grandparents' house when I was a kid for my He-Man guys, what's a little bit more slime, or mutagen ooze, as the Turtles would say. And this was where, much like a Masters of the Universe hero would be captured and had slime dropped on him, this is where Shredder would trap a turtle or any other hero that was released in the line at that point and cover them in ooze. And what young child doesn't like to get his hands a little messy with some green gooky stuff? So that was another playset that proved to be enjoyable for hours and hours on end, especially when that was combined with the slime pit, and it was like each team or each side, good and evil, each had their own different slime trap to be trapped inside.
Well, and that was, one of the keys to the success of this line and a lot of 80s lines was that slime, ooze, goop, mutagen, whatever it was called and whatever the line was. It was such a big deal. And it's funny that it was always used as like a sort of, Ghostbusters had slime as well. I mean, just Yep. It was everywhere. But this thing, I love that in most cases it is some sort of torture device. Like,
yeah, and they're the most popular toys because of the gross out factor.
Yeah, and this is literally you strap your figure to a table, and there is a toilet above him, and you dump the slime into the toilet, and it goes through onto the figure. Absolutely disgusting, and for a kid, absolutely essential and amazing.
It was mutant waterboarding, was what it was.
This is accurate. Let's see. Okay, so moving on to my next pick for just one of the awesome vehicles of this line. I'm going to cheat a little bit here because I'm going to mention one, but it's not my pick. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just going to say what it is. I think we have to give props to the Mutant module because
absolutely,
it was omnipresent on the show. It was the main form of travel for the Foot Clan. It was in like every episode. It's critical. But to me, as a toy, as something that was fun to play with and is something that looks cool on the shelf, and again, something that I would love to have now, Shredder's Foot Cruiser is badass.
Oh, that was like his evil convertible.
Yes, it was the... Yep. If Shredder was Eddie Guerrero, this would be his ride. Again, a triumph of design from this toy line because it's not just a cool, Ninja Turtles vehicle. It has this incredible purple slime paint job. It's got the back hatch that opens up that has the gun turret on it. It's got rubber tires. It isn't just like, okay, we want Shredder to have a car. They really went all out and put every feature you could possibly think of on this car. It's got running boards with pegs on them, so Bebop and Rocksteady can stand on the side. It's got the little pennant flags on it. It's just beautiful. It's an incredible toy. Beyond just being a cool, like, oh, look at Shredder's evil car, it's a great example of toy engineering. Of course, it's got rockets in the front because, yes, it has to. Back then, everything shot rockets. Nobody was worried about losing an eye because toys were cool. It is just a beautiful vehicle. I would drive this thing. If I could get a real version of this, I would drive it around town 100%.
Now, were you like me when I was a kid and I thought that the pop-up feature, the thing in the back with the guns, was supposed to be like a face?
Yes.
It almost looked like two eyes and a nose. And I'm like, whose face is that supposed to be? Like, I didn't know if that was like another character, if they were trying to do something else. Like, it just had an odd look to it, but it was also part of the charm of it, was that it wasn't just like a simplistic, boom, here's two machine guns type of design.
Yeah, I mean, those are very clearly, well, they're supposed to be eyeballs. For sure. They have to be. But why are they eyeballs? You know why? Because why not?
Because it's Shredder.
Right, exactly.
And we're led to believe that he probably, along the way, stole an enemy's eyes at some point and mounted them on his convertible.
So he could shoot them at people. Why not? Yeah, I love this thing. It's great.
Right, no, that was a great toy. I did not have that one, but that's another one that I remember. My friend actually had that one, and we would do the thing where, oh, come over to my house, bring your turtles. And,
right.
Let our figures go to war.
Well, and the other cool thing about this is the chrome is actually chrome. Toys nowadays.
I did not remember that.
Yeah, toys nowadays when they're supposed to be, silver or gold or whatever, it's not vac metal anymore. It's not that nice, shiny 80s looking toy anymore. It's a dulled down, like every C-3PO you get now is that dull gold that I don't hate, but nothing's ever going to match my vac metal 3PO. And the parts on this, the running boards, the bumpers, the headlights, everything, it's all that nice, shiny chrome look. It's really, it makes a big difference to me.
I've just pulled up another picture of it now, and see, that's one of the things that I'm getting tempted to not go on eBay and look for right now.
I can't even imagine how much one would be like intact in decent condition.
Oh, I don't even want to look, because then I'm going to start looking at the stuff that I did have, and then I'm going to get sad.
So, all right, before you get sucked into the eBay, what is your next pick for great vehicle?
So you mentioned the Mutant module, and I guess that would lead me to mention not only a great playset, not only a great display piece, but just the functionality of using it as a vehicle or a playset. Of course, I'm talking about the Technodrome.
Oh, yeah.
You could have it rolling around. You could pop it open and have the figures fighting inside. I guess my only complaint was that I always felt it was a little small, like a little cramped, if you really wanted to utilize all the figures you had at that point. But you know what? That's why they made a million more vehicles for us to add to our collections. But that was just, something that we saw all the time on the cartoon. Like you said, it was just symbolic of the evil of the Ninja Turtles. And if you wanted a bad guy base of operations, you had to have that Technodrome.
And this is where we hit the point where I get to say I never had a Technodrome. I think that because I was using allowance or whatever, like I was beyond the point where I was really getting big toys for Christmas anymore. I was mostly using my own money that I scraped together, mowing the lawn, doing chores, mowing the neighbor's lawn, doing whatever, to pay for this stuff. And I think bigger ticket items or larger items, I just kind of didn't even mess with at that time. Like I was getting to the point where I was really having to make decisions about what I wanted to buy. And this one, for however much it was, which granted it was probably only like $40 back then. I don't know. But it was something that I personally ended up not being able to justify getting, but always wanted.
It was definitely given to me as a gift because I was not self-made at that point yet.
Right,
I was,
right.
I was 8, 9 when it came out. Fortunately, Grandma would listen to my pleas for new items quite often, and it was just one of those things where there was always something new to do with it. Like, it was not one of those sets that you easily got bored with, which I guess is something that you could say for most of this line as a whole, just because of the difference in these playsets and the functions of so many of these playsets and figures, is that the Ninja Turtles line always added, like, every new item always added something new to do. Like, it was never like, oh, this figure's okay. I mean, maybe you got that with the variants, or if you were getting like another turtle or something like that. But every new item, it just made your collection feel fresh again, at least for me.
Well, and I'm looking at this now, and another piece that I never had was the actual Turtles sewer headquarters or sewer base or whatever it was called, because, again, it was just a larger item that I didn't mess with at the time. But it looks to me like this portal on the front of the Technodrome might be designed to connect to the Turtles sewer base, as though they're
I
like
did not
invading.
Have the sewer base. I did not have the sewer base, but that would be awesome, because if I had the sewer base and I was able to go back in time, which apparently there's a parallel universe now, so hey, who knows how far off we are from that.
Right.
But if that happens, I am going to have to get a sewer playset and try that, because that would make my day. Like, I'd be playing Ninja Turtles for 6 hours and wouldn't bother anybody if I could do something like that.
I'm actually trying to look up the sewer playset now, and I'm not sure where it came out in the line. I think I've already gone too far into the line for it. But yeah, that tube looks like it would connect to one of the little entryways, because I remember that sewer playset having a number of different portals and tubes. There it is. Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like one of those modular hamster town things you get from like Petco.
Yeah, that came in on the side where it was like the warp zone from Mario World.
Yes.
Type of pipes. Yep.
Yeah, it's got a couple of different pipes, and it looks like they can plug into different places on the set. I think that's exactly what that is, and that is fantastic, because that kind of interactivity between pieces, one, it's fun for the kid, and two, it encourages you to want more than just the one toy.
Yeah, because it's like you can assemble. It's kind of like what Mattel did with the Eternia playset, trying to include so much in that one box. But here you're doing a different product, but still allowing people to kind of make that diorama, that whole setup with each individual item.
Well, we've got to move on. We can't spend too much time just talking about the vehicles, but before we go, is there something you'd like to give a shout-out, an honorable mention to?
The last two that I was going to mention, the classic Party Wagon.
Yes.
Can't have a talk about vehicles without the Party Wagon. That was just, just like the Technodrome and the Mutant Module for the bad guys, that was the Turtles' mode of transportation that we all saw in the cartoon. And then as far as just personal fun, and for my collection, one of the vehicles that I really enjoyed was Michelangelo's Beachbody.
Oh, yeah. Lots of personality, very specific to Mikey.
Mm-hmm. Had like the decals, like the peace sign and stuff like that on it. It was like very, very 60s, very almost hippie-ish, but it was definitely like that whole surfer dude mentality from Michelangelo. Just a fun little vehicle that I really enjoyed.
My final one, since I already threw the Mutant Module out there real quick, the sewer tubes. There were two different sewer tubes that came out that actually floated in water. Just really neat designs, basically inner tubes with guns on them.
Yep, I had one of them.
All right, so moving along, real quick, I kind of just want to discuss the line a little bit before we get to our favorite figures. It started off relatively simple with the four turtles, Bebop, Rocksteady, Shredder, a Foot Soldier, and Splinter. I don't think April was one of the... No, she was. April was one of the first ones, too. Wow, what a big wave, right?
Yeah, it was basically all the main people from that initial series, the initial cartoon, were all in that first wave.
I think, nowadays getting 7 figures in a wave is kind of a big deal. So having this much variety in a single wave is pretty impressive. But then pretty much right off the bat, we started getting weird, wacky characters, and we got stuff like Ace Duck and Genghis Frog and Mondo Gecko and just all kinds of crazy stuff. Before eventually the line, because they realized people still want the core characters, people still want those 4 turtles over and over and over again. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the, I guess, gimmick turtles that they made, how we feel about them, what they did to the line, and do you have like a favorite set of those, the Turtles as cowboys, the Turtles as universal monsters, whatever?
It was, by the time the variations started really hitting their stride, I had kind of fallen out of the line. I had gotten distracted by other toy lines because Turtles was 88, and as we've talked many times before, huge wrestling fan, obviously, between just growing up with it and now what I do for Figures Toy Company. But I was distracted by collecting the WWF Hasbro figures and then Toy Biz a year after that with the Marvel releases, the X-Men and the Marvel superheroes and stuff. So those 2 lines kind of pulled me away from Ninja Turtles, and I kind of went from sporadic collector to just, still being a fan, but at that point, that's when I was using my allowance and whatever money I would make towards what I really wanted, which at the point was wrestling and superhero figures. One thing that I do recall, which was not anything that appealed to me, but it is definitely a symbol of the 90s excess, was the Jim Lee TMNT line from
Yes.
94, 95.
Yeah.
And it was essentially the Image Comics versions of the Ninja Turtles.
They were extreme.
And, just as a comic book fan and knowing how over the top with the body image and the violence and the sensationalism of Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane and Rob Liefeld and all those guys at the time, it was like, okay, so they're going this route with the Ninja Turtles now. And I saw them, and I remember wanting them briefly, and then I was just like, nah, like it's like I wanted them just because I was reading some Image stuff at the time, and I still liked the Ninja Turtles. But at that time, every figure was getting to be like that. So it was like, it felt different because it was the Turtles, but then it was like, okay, well, if everything's like this, it's really not going to matter. Like, they're not going to stand out as much against all this other stuff. But that was just one of the more absurd takes I think they had on the line. I didn't think that the Ninja Turtles needed to get so over the top in that type of design.
Well, and I think it was right around the same time that Playmates got the license to do Wildcats, I believe. Do you remember those Wildcats figures?
Because that ran in conjunction with the cartoon, I believe.
Yes.
Yep. So that was like 94, 95 when the cartoon was on.
So, and I'm glad you mentioned Toy Biz's Marvel stuff, because that was essentially my next progression after Ninja Turtles was right into the Toy Biz Marvel stuff, which I sometimes forget about because I tend to think during high school I didn't collect much, but I did. I was buying all that stuff, man. As for me, the Jim Lee ones, the only reason I didn't buy those was because they didn't do all 4 Turtles.
They did. They only did like 2 or 3 of them, right?
They did 3 Turtles, and they did, I think the 4th figure was some other character or something. I don't remember exactly. Or maybe they just did the 3 Turtles. But that was something that seemed to happen fairly regularly with these gimmick Turtles, was that they would only do 3 of them for some reason. And I don't know what that was, but to me, as much as I didn't care about most of these kinds of things, like the sports Turtles or, I didn't need that many variations of the Turtles, and most of the time I wasn't that interested in whatever it was. I don't need Rodeo Clown Donatello or whatever it was. But it wouldn't even be all 4 Turtles, which to me, that means the collection cannot ever be completed. And that's very off-putting to me, even back then as a toy collector.
And I remember, too, and see if you remember this one, because obviously being a fan of the Turtles and being a fan of the movie, I remember one of the variants they did was like when they had the different occupations or whatever, and they did Donatello, and he was supposed to be like a private eye, but he looked like Raphael from the movie.
Yes.
And I'm like, why didn't they just go ahead and do the Raphael this way? Like, I just felt like it was such a missed opportunity. Like, this should be Raphael. Like, why can't he have the red headband? I'm thinking, make it more in line with what we've actually seen. And I don't think anyone at Playmates was thinking that way.
No, they weren't. And you can even look at the figures that were supposed to be the movie figures and see, like, they didn't get it. They were, I think they were too afraid of making something different from the toy line. So they look like the toy line. They don't look like the movie figures. And I never bought those. As much as I loved that movie, even the second that it came out, I never bought the figures directly from the movie because they didn't look right to me.
Yep, I'm with you.
So we had Star Trek Turtles, which I think was neat. Any kind of like, Paramount crossover, obviously. That's fine. I have no problem with that. The Universal Monsters Turtles, that's cool. But
Universal Monsters are awesome.
Early on, they didn't do full waves. They would be dropped in within, like, you would get maybe something like, and I'm just throwing names out here, this probably won't be entirely accurate, but you'd have a wave that was like Napoleon Bonafrog, Mutagen Man, Mondo Gecko, and then Raph in a spacesuit. Like, they would drop a turtle variation within a wave rather than doing a whole wave of themed turtles. And that stuff I thought was kind of cool. They did a punk rocker Donatello that I think that was part of a Music Turtle wave, right?
Yeah, I think they all had... Did that come out around the same time they were doing like that live stage show, the coming out of their shells?
I don't think it was related to that. I think this was a little earlier on. And actually, one interesting note about Figure Realm, for the listeners, if you're following along, the themed turtle waves are in a separate section from the regular toy line because there are so many of them.
That's because that one came out all together. That wasn't like spread out, I don't think, because Donatello was like the punk, but I remember Michelangelo was like the breakdancer or the rapper.
And I didn't remember that until you mentioned, because prior to us recording, we kind of put a little bit of information together, and you had mentioned something about, I think you said something about Michelangelo having zebra pants and a keytar.
Yes.
And I didn't even remember that there were other music-specific turtles like that. But, some of the stuff is really fun. There's a Michelangelo that's in like a body glove for whatever reason with flippers that I like. He's a cool design. He looks neat. And I could see Michelangelo, going surfing. Like, that made sense to me. That was something that could be incorporated into the line and work.
But you would wonder why a turtle would need a body glove. But hey, allow them to make another figure.
Because he wants to look cool.
And he was cool. Michelangelo was my favorite. Come on now.
So, real quick, before we get into the main event, before we get into our favorite Ninja Turtles figures, we're going to take a little pizza break here. And I want to discuss what you think is the best delivery pizza that you have had.
Oh, well, I mean, my family has owned an Italian bakery / pizza parlor since 1967. So, I mean, I'm a little biased when it comes to that. To be completely honest, I do not really go the chain pizza route all too much, just because living in the Northeast, we're kind of spoiled by local pizzerias. So that's a tough one, because I'm going to mention places and everyone listening is going to be like, wait a minute, where's that?
Well,
and
then I'll put
it's going to be Rhode Island, it's going to be New York.
I'll put it to you this way then. If you're getting a pizza, whether it's carry out or delivery, what kind of pizza are you getting?
For me, there's two. There is the very simple cheese and pepperoni, or there is the Greek style with feta cheese, spinach, and olives.
Oh, nice. Yeah, both of those are solid. I have no objections to either one of those. Now, crust style, what kind of crust man are you?
I am a crust fan, so the thicker the crust, the better.
Okay. See, I used to love a pan pizza, and I've kind of gotten away from that. I I don't necessarily go for a thin crust, but I prefer more of a hand-tossed style. I don't like the thicker crust as much as I used to. But if I'm ordering, down here, our options are limited. We do not have the local pizzerias that you are blessed with. So if I'm going with, Pizza Hut, Papa John's, Domino's, Marco's, I'm probably going to go with Pizza Hut. Just basic bitch Pizza Hut. And they just hand-tossed. I like that Hut-flavored crust. They put a seasoning on the crust that's pretty tasty.
Do they still do the pretzel crust?
I think it's available, but it's not anything I would dabble in. I'm not a big pretzel fan.
I'm not, as far as like the bags of pretzels, like munchy pretzels.
Right.
I'm not into those, but the soft baked pretzels, I do enjoy those. So the pretzel crust I've had a couple of times, and it was pretty good.
And you put it that way because I do like a good stadium pretzel, but I just mixing it with pizza, I don't know. That scares me. But toppings wise, regular amount of cheese. I don't need extra cheese on the pizza because everything slides off and it's not even a pizza anymore. I like pepperoni, meatballs, Italian sausage. I used to get onions with that, but I'm not big on onions anymore. I find the older I get, the longer things stick with me. And now if I eat an onion, I feel like I have onions in me for like a week.
I'm not an onion fan at all. But, I mean, as far as the meat lovers type of pizza, I'm right there with you on that. Some nice Italian sausage, some prosciutto on it. Oh.
Yeah, that nice thick layer of meat. I want the layer of meat to be as thick and covering as the layer of cheese.
And as the layer of dough, just like a nice triple decker. It's like eating a cake instead of a pizza.
Right.
What I'm going to have to do once the world at large gets back on its feet and things start to settle down, my uncle's bakery does do shipping. And what we have here in Rhode Island, which is his big claim to fame over the last decade or so, is he does these things called pizza chips. I can send you a link. You can look them up online. They are sold in bags, typically by a dozen. He does them as, regular pizza dough with red sauce. He does white pizza with garlic and pepper seasoning.
Oh.
He does bacon and mozzarella. He does 9-grain dough, whole wheat, for if you're healthy. He's done little bruschettas this way. But the main one is just the plain red sauce, pizza dough. But they are little mini discs of pizza. And we have the sign outside the bakery, and I don't know where they're at now, but he has sold in the millions of them. And he does ship them nationwide. One of his most frequent buyers is actually the mayor of Houston, Texas.
That's great. Well,
for those who don't know where I'm located, I'm up here in Rhode Island, up here in the Northeast, and he's sending them all around the country. And I know he is still shipping now, even with everything that's going on, because the bakery has been open because it sells food, so it's been deemed essential and everything.
Yeah.
But I have not myself been in there because I can't just go traipsing into the back room and talking to everybody. Got to follow the new standard for a little while. So once I get in there and can talk him into shipping some stuff out, I'll get you some pizza chips.
Oh man, I can't wait. That's awesome. And that's as far as everything that's going on right now. The kind of my credo is why not be safe?
Yeah. Yeah, why? just lay low for a little while.
Yeah, why not be careful? All right, it's time, man. Are you ready?
Ready, let's go.
We are between the two of us. We are going to select the top 10 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle figures from the original line. And since I chose the first vehicle pick, you get to choose the first figure pick.
All right, so I don't know if I wanted to go in any particular order. But I am going to go with one of the wackier entries into the Ninja Turtles line, that basketball-playing giraffe half-court.
Oh, wow. I love that we're starting off bizarre.
Just as an NBA fan, as a Ninja Turtles fan, it was just one of the, and just as an absurd figure collector, it was just one of those figures that hit on every note. If you are not familiar with half-court, look them up on Figure Realm or look them up online. it was basically a mutated Toys R Us Jeffrey the Giraffe with the basketball jersey on. His basketball was a hornet's nest or a beehive, and he also came with like a minifigure, and the minifigure was supposed to be like a mutant referee for his basketball games.
See, now that you've thrown the Jeffrey reference into it, it makes me want this guy. But also I'm glad you brought up his little buddy, because that was something that came into the line in like maybe the third wave, like 1990, I think, where a lot of them started coming with those little extra characters that were their little buddies. And I love that.
Yeah, it wasn't just like your standard weapons. It was almost like getting a 2-for-1, just like how we were talking about Needle Nose, like a vehicle and a figure all in one. Even the basic figures had these extra parts or these extra creatures or people that were an add-on to their personality, or just even like a standalone figure.
Yeah, that and I actually just now remembered I used to paint those guys because it bothered me that they were, because, you know, Playmates is not putting paint apps on these little tiny accessories, and it used to bother me that they were characters, but that they didn't have any paint on them, and I would actually paint those guys and give them detail.
I remember with Halfcore, I thought that for some reason his little guy was supposed to be like burned, like he was charred, because I was so used to like, you know, like Wile E. Coyote on Looney Tunes or something like that. Like that was just how they would depict them after they had been like set on fire or thrown into a volcano or whatever. So I thought part of his mutation was that he was charred, and that's why he was that way.
Well, excellent. That is a great way. I love that we're kicking this off weird. I am going to go a little bit back to basics for my first pick. Not total basic turtle, but one that became the standard for me because when they introduced the storage shell turtles, those became my main turtles. Because if you remember, the original turtles came with so many accessories and you had nothing to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they bring out these storage shell turtles, which is genius because aesthetically they're the same as the original turtles. They don't have any big extra giant pieces on them. They're shaped the same. They have the same profile. They did have harder heads, so that's a knock against them from my perspective. But those storage shells were so cool, and the fact that they came with a throwing pizza with like a saw blade on it, and like even better accessories than the original turtles came with. But they also had, like, they didn't change them up so drastically that they felt like different figures. Donatello still had his bow staff and was still purple themed. And another thing that I've just now remembered, because at this point I was doing a lot of different kinds of painting of toys and customizing figures and stuff like that. So the storage shell turtles had all the original turtles had the colored knee pads and elbow pads to match their headbands, just because that's just how it was. I painted their elbow pads and knee pads brown so they would look more like what I imagine their comic appearance was, or the covers of the comics. I did leave their headbands individually covered because I did like that concept. But the storage shell turtles, their belts were matched to their headbands as well. So I ended up painting their belts black. Like, I did a lot. I didn't even think about this until tonight. I did so much customizing on this line because there were just little extra things that I wanted that Playmates wasn't going to shell out the money to do all these different colors or do all these different decos. But that storage shell Donatello, and I picked Donatello just because he's my favorite turtle, but the storage shell turtles for me were like a landmark in the line because it was such a cool feature and really just changed the way you could play with the figures.
It was improving upon a classic because, like you said, too, they still got their standard weapons. It wasn't like years later when they were getting all those, the different occupational turtles or the rock and roll turtles or whatever, where you weren't getting the proper accessories with them. So if that was the first time you got Michelangelo or Raphael or whoever, you weren't getting the size or the nunchucks. You were getting a boombox or whatever. Right. So, like you said, you're still getting something new, like the pizza shurikens or whatever they were, but you're also getting the traditional weaponry, and you're able to keep them together without, the weapons getting scattered or losing them, because those original ones, they were on those little plastic pegs. So it's like you pop them off, you're not using them unless you've got them in a Ziploc bag somewhere. They're getting buried at the bottom of your toy box or kicked under the couch or whatever. So, yeah, what did I have for the storage? I think I had Michelangelo and Raphael for the storage turtles.
They were great. They were just, I loved having, because I loved all the weapons that the original ones came with. You popped them off the little sprue, you were good to go, but then eventually they were gone, or I was not at that point in my life storing accessories in Ziploc bags, so who knows where those things ended up. All right, so what is your next pick for one of the greatest turtles of all time?
All right, well, veering back into classic territory, he's probably my favorite co-star of the Ninja Turtles franchise. I'm sure many people like him, but the vigilante lover in me has always been a fan of Casey Jones. So going back to Series 2 and that very first Casey Jones figure, he's got the hockey mask on, he's got the bag of sporting goods that he uses to beat evil into submission, and just one of my favorite figures, not only for the Ninja Turtles line, but Casey Jones is one of my favorite figures from my childhood overall out of any line.
Well, and he's so great because that head really looks like the way they drew him in the comics. He just has a great look. All the stuff fits into the golf bag. The golf bag fits over his torso. Like, everything on this figure works. It looks great. It's got a lot of color, but he's not like outlandish. He's not neon colors or anything like that. He looks like a guy in sweats and a hockey mask, but in an exciting action figure-y way. He's very toyetic, but also looks like Casey Jones. He's recognizable.
And the design, too. I mean, we even got, like, the elastic string from his sweatbands, like, all tied up and stuff like that. Like, it wasn't just like, hey, we're going to slap legs on and paint them into sweatpants. Like, they actually went with, like, the full design of the costume and everything. And just, like, the different shades of green and everything, like, just the decal, not the decal, but the deco and everything. He pops. He pops while being simplistic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's a legend. He's one that's a must own for sure out of the line. I wonder if does it give his height? He's 6'2". He's the tallest character so far, because Shredder's only 6 feet.
So Casey Jones is bigger than Shredder, and I don't think it was ever depicted that way.
No, definitely not. Although I would imagine Elias Koteas is taller than the actor who portrayed Shredder in the first movie. Not, however, taller than Kevin Nash, who portrayed Super Shredder. All right, so my second pick, one of my favorite action figures of all time, one of the best action figure designs, I think, ever, and that is Mutagen Man. Mutagen Man, so weird. He's this first of all, you've got a translucent action figure. I'm a sucker for translucence. I'm a sucker for glow in the dark, and he's translucent, and his arms and legs are these like weird rotten zombie parts with cyborg pieces holding them together. He's got tubes. I love tubes. And then you can see his guts. All of his insides are inside of this clear capsule that you can fill with the fluid of your choice. And of course, given that this line is based around mutagen, you want to put some mutagen in there. And if I remember, I put in a mixture of water and mutagen, so there would be like sort of a lava lamp effect. But the problem is eventually that broke down and it just looked like disgusting garbage in there. But I loved this guy. He's what a bizarre, weird character.
He was a great fit. I had him too, and I'm actually looking him up mint on card right now because for some reason I'm just checking to see what the cost is on some of these right now. I really shouldn't be doing that.
Can't imagine why.
But I like how the card back actually says, fill with water, mutant floating guts.
Yes.
So it is actually advertising the fact that you can make his guts float.
Well, and he had the little pieces that floated around inside, but I loved this figure so much that this is what sold me on the fact that I had to have Super 7's new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle figures. When Super 7 put Mutagen Man into the second wave, that was it for me. I have to have it. I have to.
That pushed you over the edge now.
Yeah, that was it. Because I wanted them, but Super 7 stuff is a little pricey, and committing myself to a new line is not something I necessarily want to do these days. But man, as soon as they showed that Mutagen Man, I was like, it's a modern, I have to. I'm done. And I just ordered both waves because that's the kind of guy I am.
Oh, Super 7 makes great stuff, but I gotta stay away from them.
Oh yeah, it's dangerous, man. If I could put some kind of block on them on the internet to where I just didn't see anything from them anymore, well, I wouldn't do it, but I wish I could.
It took every ounce of my being to not go all in on Super 7 or Mattel doing the Masters of the Universe. And then I look at some of those figures I passed up on, and I'm like, oof, all right, well, that would have paid for itself 10 times over.
Oh, dude, I'm already just with... Because I bought a couple of the gimmicky Super 7 Masters figures. Like, I got the one glow-in-the-dark He-Man. I got He-Man and Skeletor in the Japanese boxes. The vintage-style ones, just because they were neat-looking. But for the most part, I avoided all that stuff. But now Mattel is putting out that new Masters Universe Origins line. Oh, dude.
Yeah, Walmart exclusive, right?
Well, I think Walmart's getting it first. I don't think it's Walmart exclusive.
They'll just get like the advance on them or whatever.
Right. Like they'll get them a couple months. It's almost kind of like these Star Wars retro figures that they're getting, because right now they're exclusive to Walmart. But other retailers are going to get them later, like Entertainment Earth and stuff. So you'll actually be able to get decent cards if you want those.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, those Masters of the Universe Origins, man. As soon as like right now in my head, I'm not going to collect that, but I'm totally going to collect that.
Oh, I'm going to have to buy 2 of them because my son is still very much into Masters of the Universe. So that's like with the WWE Masters of the Universe. Usually with like things like the retros, I would buy doubles because I would crack one open, put it in my display, and I would put another one away, mint on card. Well, now that he's into wrestling figures, depending on what wrestling figure it is, sometimes I have to triple dip, which is not easy to do these days.
Oh, no
so
kidding.
I have to kind of sporadically, okay, well, he wants this one and I want this one, and I've sacrificed a couple of figures, but that Masters line, I'm like, okay, it's wrestling, it's He-Man, I'm going all in on this. So we actually have 3 of each because he's got one, I've got one, and then we have one to put away. And if the value of the retro line at this point is any indication, hopefully the Masters will gain a little bit of steam in the years to come too, and they'll be a solid investment.
I think so. I really do think so. That Masters of WWE, I think within a few years that's going to be very, very desired by wrestling fans and by Masters fans.
Exactly. Yeah, it's hitting 2 different collectors markets. So
yeah, I'm in the same boat with Marvel Legends because my son is collecting those. So now it's like, do I want 2 of these, or do I want to just enjoy the fact that I bought one and give it to him? Like it's it's funny when they get into the same stuff you're into. All right, we got to move on. Oh, go ahead.
Did you find the Red Hulk in your area?
I got one for him. I have not. I don't think I'm going to get one for me, but I've seen him a couple of times now.
I found him once and got him, and then I had ordered one for Zach, and the order got canceled. And they said that they didn't actually have it in the store.
Oh, I didn't know you were still looking. If you're still looking, I'll keep an eye out, because I've seen him a couple of times now.
Oh, nice. Yeah, let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we got to move on. What is your next pick?
All right, so this one was a favorite of mine because of the family business that I mentioned, and also because he looked just like a crazed horror movie villain straight out of the 80s. I am talking about Pizza Face,
yes,
who came with a cleaver and what was supposed to be a shield, but really looked like a bloody mass of like body parts or limbs. If you look at it, it looked like almost looked like a blood spattered diorama in his package, but it was actually supposed to be his shield. So I'm guessing maybe it was the pizza sauce that was splattered upon him or whatever reason. But he just looks like a sadistic serial killer in a kid's toy line, and I just thought it was hysterical. It just reminded me of, like I said, some type of crazed horror movie villain, and of course he was in my collection because everybody thought, haha, we'll get this for Chris because we own a pizza place.
Well, and he's great because they really went all in on functionality with this guy because he comes with those 2 pizzas that he can throw, and that right hand is actually sculpted to hold them.
Mm-hmm.
So he can throw them like discs, or I don't know what you would actually throw at that angle. Normally, you'd think of the way Captain America throws his shield. That's not the way Pizza Face is throwing his pizzas. But you're right, that shield looks like something out of like a Herschel Gordon Lewis movie. But it's what, a pizza box with a grenade on it and pizza leaking out the sides, I guess, and like knives and stuff. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, and his leg is a pizza cutter. So it's like he's got the leg is like stuck inside more pizza, and then he's got the cleaver. He looks like a madman.
And you could switch the cleaver and the pizza box on his leg too.
Yes. So he was almost one of those like customizable type of figures.
Yeah, lots of play value on this guy. Yeah, he's great. I loved him. All right, let's see here. Oh, okay. So my next pick is a figure that I actually still have. I don't own a lot of the figures that I had when I was a kid because when I moved out of my parents' house, everything got stuck up in the attic, and I just didn't feel like I wanted to go after it. I had nowhere to put it. There were all kinds of factors to why I didn't keep up with that stuff and why over the years I just wasn't able to keep it. But I always kept my Fugitoid figure.
Oh, yes, Fugitoid was great. I had Fugitoid.
He's this great gold and black color scheme. Absolutely, the toy is supposed to be a little reminiscent of C-3PO, I think. But then he's got that fold-down chest that you can plug that gun into. He's got all kinds of little pegs and everything where you can store his weapons and accessories. He's just got, Fugitoid in the comics was very plain. If you look at this figure and take off basically all of the details, that's what he looked like. So Playmates, the designers at Playmates, got a hold of this concept and said, well, we want to make this guy look more like a toy, and they did, and it's very successful to the point where usually if something deviates too far from its source material, that irritates me. But in this case, I think this toy is far superior to the original character design. And that's nothing against the original character design because it was a couple of guys drawing comics. Like, they don't want to draw all these little nodules and consoles and everything going on here. And the point of Fugitoid was to be sort of a retro-futuristic design. But for the intents of this figure, they went all in and made the coolest-looking Fugitoid they could make.
And I'm going to spill a little geek here that when I had Fugitoid and was playing with my figures, I mentioned how I would kind of do crossovers with my Masters of the Universe. And you being a fan of the Masters, you'll probably get the reference. But Fugitoid always struck me by having a very similar color scheme to Blast Attack from Masters line.
Oh, yeah.
So I would always use Fugitoid and Blast Attack like they had some type of relationship, whatever I had created in my head. But it was like Blast Attack was like the evil robot from there, and Fugitoid was the good one. So anytime I had like the Ninja Turtles He-Man crossover with some of the figures, it was always Fugitoid versus Blast Attack because they were like arch rivals from whatever type of backstory I had created.
Oh, that's perfect. I love that. Yeah, and there were, we got lucky in that there were a few of these 5-inch scale lines that all kind of worked together aesthetically and size-wise, that were the weird out there stuff that were just fun. Yeah, this guy was one of my favorites. All right, what is your next pick?
So this one is one of the more normal characters, as much as a teenager from the future could be, but the figure was just a very product of its time. It was a very 90s-looking figure with the color scheme and the hairstyle and everything. And ironically, it is a figure that shares a name with my son and with my pop culture TV show idol. But I am talking about Zach, the Neutrino.
Oh, wow. Okay, we're getting into Neutrino's territory. Go ahead.
Yep. I just the Neutrinos. I would not say that I was like an uber fan of the Neutrinos or anything, but I always thought that Zach the Neutrino was just a cool looking figure. Like he was a standout without being one of those more outlandish type of figures. Like he was very simplistic, but much like Casey Jones, I just think that the color scheme used and the deco on him, I think that he was just a standout, and it was just very eye catching, and that's why I added him to my collection.
Well, and I'm trying to look now. He's towards the latter part of the line, like not the end of the line, but a little further in. But if I remember correctly, he was part of the tuned up line where they had an almost metallic paint job, not like vac metal or anything, but they had a sort of that glittery metallic look paint job.
Yeah, it was like glossy is not the word that I'm looking for, but like it shined a little bit more. And he was blue and not blue and red, blue and yellow, purple hair, just very loud primary colors, very very 90s, like very bright, very exuberant colors.
Yeah, and they were. You're right. As far as the cartoon went, not a fan of the Neutrinos, but their design was very, very cool and definitely like very 90s. Like you couldn't find more 90s looking toys than these guys.
And he had a hoverboard. So if you look Back to the Future, he had a hoverboard.
Of course. All right, so I am going to move on to my penultimate pick, and it's, again, really more of a basic one from a little earlier on, but the character was so important to me because of the comics, and that was the Triceraton.
Okay.
We are, with the Triceratons, you're mixing dinosaurs, which are still huge at that point. We're getting pretty close to Jurassic Park being a thing, but I mean, when you're a kid, dinosaurs are awesome, and that's just a fact. And by the time the Triceraton figure came out, I had read the comics and knew that the Triceratons were an important part of the comics, and I ended up getting several Triceraton figures. I think I had 4. And,
wow.
Yeah, because in the comics, they're a race, and there are a lot of them. And there's one Triceraton that goes insane and kind of becomes a companion of the Turtles, and then the rest of them are just sort of these soldiers. So I had 4 that I painted to look different. One of them I actually made an eye patch for him because the one that goes insane loses an eye at one point. So I made, out of masking tape, I made an eye patch and painted it black and put it on him, and then painted him up in different colors so it would be 4 different Triceraton characters, because I loved these characters in the comic. They were this sort of militaristic society that the Turtles had to deal with at one point when they were hopping through different dimensions. And the figure itself, while very different from what they looked like in the comics, it's a great figure with lots of detail. It's big, it's thick, it's one of my favorite figures. Anything where you take a dinosaur and give it some kind of personality and make it into a character, I'm going to be a fan of that. I'm going to dig that.
It is a great looking figure. I did not have this one. I'm looking at him now, and and he definitely looks like he's bulkier than some of like the other figures. Like they made him more massive to get that point across that he was a dinosaur.
Yeah, he could have. It would have been great if he was a little taller, but I mean that's not what we're dealing with the Ninja Turtle line, so that's okay. But they did give him that thickness and that heft that made him look just bigger and more menacing. All right, let's see. Are we down to your final pick?
My last one.
Okay,
I'm at my last one. And you've mentioned this one, so I'm hoping that I'm not stealing your last pick here.
Well, I don't think so, because my last pick is before we get to our final picks, we have to take a little segue and discuss one figure that is so weird, so outlandish, so beyond the pale that it deserves to be mentioned. And if you would like to go first, do you have your selection for, I guess, weirdest Ninja Turtle figure?
Oh, I definitely have my selection. It is the April O'Neil that, for some reason, is dressed like a hooker. There is an April O'Neil variant, April the Ravishing Reporter.
Yes.
And I remember this figure from my youth, and I could not think of what the variation of it was, so I looked it up just to get the actual name of it, and it's April the Ravishing Reporter, but she has like a black leather bustier on and her jacket open. Like, April looks like a lady of the night.
It's rough.
So if you're going the comic route with your Ninja Turtles collection and you buy like 2 or 3 of these, you are all good for the sleazy New York City streets. Like, you are in prime condition.
Well, she even has rooted hair.
Well, I was just going to say that. It looks like this is sharing the body, so I'm going to dive into Geek Chris show love status for a second. In 1992, there was a teen soap opera called Swan's Crossing, which was the vehicle that propelled Sarah Michelle Gellar into notoriety. And it was on daily, and Playmates had a deal with this show to produce a toy line.
Oh.
So there is a very short-lived toy line for a very short-lived TV show, and it was Ninja Turtle-sized action figures from Playmates, and all the girls had rooted hair. So I think this April O'Neil is utilizing one of the Swans Crossing bodies, and for some reason they just decided to turn her into a lady of the night.
Wow. That's amazing. And that, I'm glad you brought that up, because that really, this 5-inch scale was the Playmates size, because their Star Trek line was this same scale as well.
Yep, and Playmates did the Toxic Crusaders, correct?
Right, that's correct. I think the Wildcats were the first ones where they moved up to a bigger 6-inch scale. All right, I'm going to throw my weird figure out there, and you're not going to believe this, but mine is also an April O'Neil.
Uh-oh.
April, the Ninja Newscaster. This one...
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I don't remember this one.
She is literally, if you're on the page with April, the Ravishing Reporter, she is the entry prior. Like, if you scroll up, she's right there.
Okay. Oh, wait, I do remember this one. Okay. She's like a queen of the jungle or a lady wrestler.
Makes no sense whatsoever. She's a ninja newscaster, but she's wearing like a leopard print bodysuit, almost like Wendy Richter style. She's got a headband. She's got turtle knee pads. She's got ninja boots on. Just completely bonkers. Yeah. Yeah, and then she has... It looks like a video camera, but with like a ninja sword handle. It's the craziest thing, and she has one. So she comes with 5 accessories. She has one hand posed to hold an accessory. The other hand is in the traditional woman slapping pose. This figure is just bonkers. It's so weird.
When you said it, I didn't know like the subtitle of it, but now I remember this, and yeah, this is definitely...
It's because nobody would look at this and think ninja. They would think cave woman, which, by the way, is an entirely different April O'Neil figure.
I do remember they did like there was like a whole caveman line.
Yes,
there was like a couple of different caveman turtles.
Yes,
I do remember that.
Dinosaurs and everything. All right, well it's funny that both of our weird picks were April, but now we got to move on. It is time to wrap this thing up, and our final picks for the top 10 best Ninja Turtle action figures. What is your last pick, sir?
We mentioned him earlier, and for all the reasons why we talked about him earlier are the reasons why I chose him as my favorite, because just a great design. It appealed to me on levels beyond the Ninja Turtles. I am talking about Muckman with his buddy Joe Eyeball.
Yes. Excellent.
Just a great-looking figure. It reminded me very much of the Toxic Avenger / Toxic Crusaders. I was always a big Trauma fan growing up, so any guy who was made out of mutagen and garbage just brought those memories flooding back. And he was the perfect crossover figure if you were mixing in your Toxic Crusaders with your Ninja Turtles.
Well, and again, he had that sort of extra play value because that trash can on his back, he could either carry his little buddy around in it, or which, by the way, I also painted Joe Eyeball. He had, I think, yellow eyeballs with little black pupils. I painted his teeth sort of an off-white, and I might even still have him somewhere. But that garbage can on his back could carry Joe Eyeball, or you could fill it with mutagen, which would then ooze out of his chest.
Yes, he had that hole like he had been shot in the stomach.
Yes. Yeah, he's beautiful. And the colors are so nice because I think he was a garbage man that fell into some mutagen or something like that. So he's got his bright orange suit on. And I love this detail. It's so ridiculous. He's got a clothespin on his nose because he can't stand his own smell.
And I remember when I was a kid, I thought it was a banana peel at first. Like, I didn't understand what it was. But his whole body, too, like, if you look at the design of the body, like, he's got, like, a worm on an arm. He's literally made of junk and grossness and trash.
Yeah, he's almost like a human Madball.
And Madballs are great, and I know that you love Madballs.
I'm looking at his fingers right now. He's got skeleton fingers. Like, he's almost like Emil from RoboCop. He's great and disgusting.
His face is very like around like the mouth and stuff. It's almost like Black Lagoonish. It's almost like they're giving him like gills of some kind.
Oh, and you know what? I'm just now remembering this as I'm looking at this figure. His hat comes off. His hat, which does have a banana peel on it, comes off, and you could put mutagen in there also, and it would come out of his mouth.
Yes,
I totally forgot
I remember that. I forgot all about that too until you just said that.
Oh, what a great, amazing, fantastic figure. And one, if I had to sit down and buy 10 of these off of eBay, he would be one of them for sure.
Oh, he's great. And I do want to give an honorable mention to Merdude, who was the Mutant Mermaid man.
Oh, yeah,
I mentioned this as we were talking about this earlier when we were just kind of like briefing everything. But take a look at Merdude and tell me that the face design of Merdude does not give you flashbacks to the movie Neon Maniacs.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know, it's funny. We actually have a Merdude upstairs because my wife is huge into mermaids or mer whatever. And we were in one of those sort of like antique stores that are different booths with different people selling things. And there was a Merdude just sitting in one of them. Like, it wasn't even a toy booth. He was just there. So I got her a Merdude just because.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we've got him upstairs. And so our final figure, in keeping with aquatic-themed things, because that's another one of my sort of niche figure things that I love, my final pick is Ray Fillet.
Yes, I had Ray Fillet.
He's great. He's the manta ray mutant humanoid guy. He comes with his little buddy fish sticks. And there were 6 different versions of this guy. The V on his chest was different colors. Right? And it also changed color when you put it in hot or cold water.
Yep.
So,
I remember that. Was that the first edition that did that? Or was it like one of the variants that did that? I can't remember that much.
I'm trying to remember if they all did it, but were all different colors, or if there was only one of them that did it. I had the one that had the purple V on his chest, and that one changed colors.
I'm trying to think if I had purple or red.
Yeah, and I don't know if they all did or if they took that feature out later on, but he's such a great design. He's bulky and thick. That face looks like something straight out of like Earthworm Jim, which, by the way, another great line from Playmates. You know, it wouldn't surprise me. Oh, gosh, what's his name? Doug TenNapel, I think, is the guy that created Earthworm Jim. Wouldn't surprise me a bit if he had something to do with this line. I'm going to have to look into that. But he's
Ray also another aquatic-themed figure that's wearing flippers.
Yes, absolutely. Got the flippers on. And if I'm remembering right, I had like a little aquatic force that was Ray Fillet, Michelangelo in his body glove suit with the flippers on, and maybe a couple other people. I never had a Merdude when I was a kid. But I mean, that was always a big thing for me. As a matter of fact, slightly off topic, I recently purchased the entire wave of WWF Stomp Series 2 mint
Yes.
on card because it's aquatic themed.
Yes, and that was like the first. That was the first short-haired Owen Hart, right?
Yes, it was. And unfortunately, I need to get another Rocky Maivia, because when mine arrived, his head fell off. Like, I didn't open them. These are all still mint on card, but when I unpacked Rock, I was sitting looking at him, and his head just fell off in the
Just
the
rolled right off?
Right. So I need another one of those. But other than that, yes, I have an entire set of those mint on card just because they're aquatic themed toys.
That is awesome. Yeah, Ray Fillet is a great figure. I had Ray Fillet. He was definitely part of my Ninja Turtles force back in the day. Yeah, I'm looking at him now. What an over the top grin.
Oh yeah.
You are sending me down. I'm going to be up till midnight just browsing eBay tonight, and I know I can't be.
Right, exactly. Though it's terrible, man. Well, that pretty much wraps up our talk about Ninja Turtles, and we've left it open because I wanted to cover our favorites, because this way, at some point, we can come back and talk a little bit more about the line in general. We can talk about maybe some of the characters we didn't get to. So there's another episode, like the potential out there when we want to revisit this later on. This one, I just kind of wanted to talk about the line and some of our favorites.
Lay the groundwork for it all.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on and talking Ninja Turtles. Where can we find you online? What are you up to?
All right. So if you are listening to this and you are a collector of any kind, but especially for DC Comics, Kiss, The Three Stooges, professional wrestling, and a whole lot more, please check out FiguresToyCompany.com. That is where I work. I am the Chief Marketing Officer of Figures Toy Company. We specialize in retro style, aka Mego style action figures for DC Comics, Kiss, The Three Stooges, The Monkees, the cast of characters from Hanna-Barbera like Scooby-Doo, Blue Falcon, Dynamite, the Galaxy Trio, and more. We are also the officially licensed makers of Ring of Honor Pro Wrestling action figures, the Legends of Professional Wrestling action figures, and the Rising Stars of Wrestling. So if you want to look up any of that stuff, we have a big shipment coming in June, which features new additions to the Super Friends line. We have Darkseid coming in, Kalibak, Desaad, the Parademon, a Lex Luthor as Green Lantern variant. Giganta will be in stock soon. We are expecting a Jim Cornette variant for our wrestling figures, Flip Gordon for the Rising Stars line. Just a whole lot of stuff coming in June. Check out FiguresToyCompany.com, WrestlingSuperstore.com. It's at FiguresToyCo and at WRES_Superstore on Twitter. Just look up the company name on Facebook and Instagram, Figures Toy Company and Wrestling Superstore. And if you'd like to follow me personally over on Twitter for all things FTC related, some pop culture randomness, and just a good old chat about whatever type of collections you fancy, I am at Zach Malibu.
Well, and also to keep up with your action movie, I guess, retro reviews?
Oh, yeah, if that's true. If you would like to go up to bulletproofaction.com, Bulletproof Action focuses on action movies from the past and present. I have a monthly column, No Surrender Cinema, where I cover anything from the latest Netflix releases like Extraction to movies from back in the day like Maniac, Cop, and The Wraith. So if you're into B movies, if you're into new movies, I've got pretty much everything covered. The latest edition will be up in just a couple of days, and that is going to focus on the 2006 crime thriller starring Paul Walker, Running Scared.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much, and we'll be talking to you again soon because we are going to have to discuss 1990.
And we will be doing that for quite a while because the 90s had a lot to talk about.
Yeah, they really did. We're going to look into 1990 and beyond as the years go on.
I am looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you.
Okay, so you guys may not have realized the YouTube talk in the intro was serious because that was just intro talk, right? But this right here, this is outro talk. This is where things get real. So for real, go subscribe to the Needless Things YouTube channel. Join the Needless Things Podcast Facebook group and share this stuff with the world. And if you didn't enjoy this episode, which is inconceivable to me, go find another one. Because there are 318 other episodes. That's over 1,000 hours. I don't think it's over 1,000 hours, but it's a lot because we don't do a whole lot of hour episodes, if you know what I'm saying. Lots and lots and lots of hours of Needless Things podcast. There's at least one out there for everybody. We have talked about and to all kinds of different pop culture things. I have interviewed everybody from Tim Clark, who worked on the Dark Crystal and worked with the Muppets for years, to William Stout, to Larry Hama, to Missy Suicide, who started the Suicide Girls website. There's an episode with her. I interviewed her. It's crazy, you guys. It's crazy. Adam Warrock, Calabrese, Les Sexoflex, all kinds of stuff out there that you don't even know about because you've only been listening for a little while here because this popped up in your YouTube feed and you heard the audio, or maybe you're listening to Spotify. I don't know. It's everywhere now. But share it. Do me a favor and share an episode or share a video. I love you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Needless Things podcast. You're the best. You can find the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Downcast, or in the ears of a Trader Vic's employee. Love you. Mean it. Uh-huh.